This is an unofficial and unauthorized translation of a Figu publication. 202nd Contact. Saturday, August 24, 1985, 2:38 p.m. Billy says, "What do you think in terms of the things that have to do with the area of sex? In my view, everything slowly gets negatively out of control in this area worldwide." Quetzal says, "That is correct. The sex life of the Earth person slowly degenerates more and more. All shame gets lost and everything gets out of control, namely to such an extent that the sex life only comes to validity for reasons of a purely physical and instinctive form. In addition, more and more, one only marries for reasons of a false feeling of love and no longer in accordance with a true perception of love, which will lead to very many divorces in the coming time. The tendency of this is increasing alarmingly. Together with false love, also having more money, property, and goods, as well as the costly adorning of the outward appearance play a very important role, but not the true perception of love that is of actual importance and meaning and that is life continuous. So in particular, sex greed that is focused on purely physical pleasure will, from now on, get out of control in an increasing measure, by what means a worldwide sex business emerges, which finds its expression not only in countless brothels but also in the robbery, sexual abuse, and sexual enslavement of children and women. And in relation to this, even innumerable murders and rapes will be included. Pornography will also become a worldwide catchword, namely with respect to adult pornography as well as child pornography and sodomy pornography. Also, the industry of sex toys will become a proper branch of the economy. The cornerstone for this was laid by a certain Beatus, who already began, in the middle of the century, to undermine the sexual sense of shame of people by selling and spreading sex toys, etc., through which she not only became rich but also destroyed the morals of people, from which a true farce will develop in the coming time, that there was an insignificance against Sodom and Gomorrah. The sexual taboos will fall upon all therefore. Only purely physical sex greed and money greed will dominate those scenes that alienate themselves from decency and modesty. Billy says, "Do you know the interests around Hitler?" Quetzal says, "Yes, why?" Billy says, "My question, as Fath once explained to me, Adolf Hitler was syphilitic and already terminally ill in the third stage, and in consciousness, he was already no longer entirely clear in the head. His consciousness had already been partially impaired, by what means he could no longer think clearly and act, and he also became megalomaniac and unpredictable. From this disease, syphilis, he would have died sooner or later if he hadn't shot himself, which he actually did, right? Anyhow, that's what Fath said." Quetzal says, "What you have said corresponds to the truth. But why do you mention these things?" Billy says, "Quite simply because there are always people who maintain that Hitler is still alive and, thus, didn't commit suicide." Quetzal says, "That corresponds to erroneous, stupid, and know-it-all claims as well as wishful assertions because Adolf Hitler actually shot himself, and to be sure, in Berlin on the 30th of April, 1945. At that time, he was just 56 years old." Billy says, "He actually wasn't German but rather Austrian, son of the Austrian customs official Alois Hitler. He really became a German citizen in 1932. As Fath said, he was also a Jew, but he denied this throughout his life." Quetzal says, "That is correct. He kept this secret until his suicide." Billy says, "Thus, Hitler, with absolute certainty, has no longer been alive since 1945, as Fath said." Then another question. Fath said that at the turn of the century, respectively the millennium, genetic engineering, respectively genetic manipulation, would very strongly step into appearance again, as this was already the case a long time ago and was practiced here on Earth by extraterrestrials, as well as in a space-time fabric that is shifted to our space-time fabric of Sirius, when there, a large group of humans from the Enoch line became genetically manipulated by the Syrians. Sfath said that in a coming time, animals such as monkeys/apes will have human brain parts or entire brains implanted into them, and also genetic manipulations are supposed to be made, from which animal people will then emerge, whom you call Chabam. These, then, are beings that have an actual animal body yet a functioning human consciousness and, therewith, also a creative human spirit form. The same applies to the Seraphim, who have half human/half animal bodies and likewise a consciousness and, therewith, a creative human spirit form, such as in the old mythologies with the fauns, the minotaur, and the centaurs, etc. The Bible even mentions the Chabam and the Seraphim, but there, they are called angels, that is, messengers, who have been or who should be intermediaries between God and man, as the monotheistic religions lay this out. Now, the time of these genetic manipulations, as well as the transplants of brain and body parts, will soon stand at the door, according to Sfath's information. Quetzal says, that is correct. The beginning of this, however, was already made on the 3rd of December, 1967, when the South African cardiac surgeon, Christian Neethling Barnard, performed the first successful heart transplant. Billy says, but when will it all properly begin? Quetzal says, in the not-too-distant time, because genetic and cloning attempts have already been underway for many years, whereby a lot is still kept secret. Thus, already for 6 years, a clone mutant has existed, which is kept behind closed doors in a secret laboratory and is kept alive for research purposes. Transplantation technology is already on its way to becoming routine technology, which will also soon happen with genetic engineering, and in particular, only plants and animals are used and genetically altered for research purposes. Then, also cloning will officially step into appearance, which will certainly be the case in the 90s, for in this regard, very great progress will be made up to then. So then, already the first animals are cloned, after which efforts will then also arise to create human clones in an open and, thus, official form. In addition, criminal and sectarian activities, unfortunately, won't keep themselves away in this respect, as I know from a future review. Billy says, thus, abuse will also be committed with genetic engineering and transplantation technology? Quetzal says, that will, unfortunately, be the case. Even children will be robbed of their organs for transplants, by what means they will die or become invalids. Even adults will be murdered for organ harvesting, and to be sure, worldwide, but particularly in South America and in China. In China, it will even be such that those who are sentenced to death will be shot in such a way that practically all organs other than the brain can be used for transplantation. A worldwide major organ trade will step into appearance, which will very soon take uncontrolled forms. But now, my friend, that should again be enough for today. So I am going now. I will come back soon. The end.